to Legitimate Matters. This is your host, William Paris. I am honored and excited with this show today. I have a very special guest, and that is none other than Council Member Vanessa Gibson. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I am so excited that you're here. And first of all, besides welcoming you to the show and thanking you for being here, I want to congratulate you on all that you're doing for our community, the difference that you're making. And I think we would both agree there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about on this show is my personal concern that so many people in our community are just not involved enough. They're not paying attention. You're out there and you're doing your thing and you're making a difference and you're the voice of the residents in the Bronx. But I think that just like the people in the community need your support, but I think that we need to support you as well. And that's really what I want to bring out. I've spoken to random people in the community, just asking them, do you know what district you live in? They're like, no. Okay. Do you know who the elected officials are? No. Well, that's what I really want to accomplish today, among other things. And I want to educate the viewers on what exactly the council members do, not just in the Bronx, but throughout the city. So can you tell us the purpose of the New York City Council?
Sure. The New York City Council is composed of 51 members, elected representatives that cover the 5 boroughs in the city of New York, 8.4 million New Yorkers that live in the 5 boroughs. And we are led by a speaker who is elected by the members of the city council. Every council member has a term limit of 2 consecutive 4-year terms. I see. So they can serve a total of 8 years. Before the term limits were extended, some members are there for 12 years. So I am one of 51 members. Our 2 primary functions as council members are to vote on a budget for the city of New York that's about $84 to $85 billion, working in conjunction with the mayor of the city of New York. And in addition, we are legislators, we are policy makers, we are decision makers that make decisions on behalf of thousands of residents in our districts, but collectively that have an impact on the entire city of New York. So the process to introduce legislation that will become local law, that looks at transforming our city, creating new laws that will create better order, establish responsibility, establish criteria for certain practices. Lots of different things we do. But within that, obviously, there is a lot more that each council member does representing their district. Our district in the Bronx, District 16, is the communities of Claremont, Claremont Village, Concourse, Concourse Village, Highbridge, Mount Eden, and Morris Heights. And we cover a large community of residents and seniors, a growing, diverse community, different cultures, nationalities, about 160,000 people. So being a member of the New York City Council is an incredible honor and a privilege. It's extremely challenging, but very rewarding.
And I also understand from what I've read that you have responsibility over a rather significant budget that includes you're an overseer for the police department, among other things. Can you tell us a little about that as well?
Absolutely. Each member of the city council chairs a committee, and that's at the appointment of the speaker that is over the city council. When I was elected in 2013 in November, and I took over from the outgoing council member Helen Diane Foster, the speaker of the city council, Melissa Mark Viverito, a few months taking office as speaker, appointed me as the committee chairwoman of the Committee on Public Safety. Not only is it an incredible honor, but I'm the first woman and the first person of color to ever chair public safety.
I read that.
It's a great challenge. This is the committee that works with the NYPD, the 5 district attorneys in each of our boroughs, the Special Narcotics Prosecutor, the Civilian Complaint Review Board, and the Mayor's Criminal Justice Director. So my job is to work with each of those entities on a budget, their priorities, also legislative priorities as well, throughout the year and during the budget process.
Speaking of touching on what you mentioned a few minutes ago, which is our narcotics, and there was a particular law, I believe it is it's 217/034, and it has something to do with the administrative code of the New York City in relation to excluding certain violations involving possession of controlled substances. And I believe that you were directly involved in that. What was that? Was that something to minimize the incarceration of people recklessly in the community?
It's our ongoing effort to reform the criminal justice system to ensure that all people are treated fairly and equally when they enter our courts. We know the disproportionate impact the criminal justice system has had on young men and women of color, immigrants, LGBTQ youth, vulnerable youth, immigrant youth. And our passion and our priorities since I began in the council under this administration, our mayor, speaker, all of my colleagues, is we are very, very serious about reforming the criminal justice system, closing Rikers Island, looking at low-level nonviolent offenses, because many youth are in jail because they cannot make bail.
Right.
Bail reform is important, summons court and reforming those court systems, but looking at low-level nonviolent offenses, and especially when you talk about marijuana. While we cannot change state law, but what we can do at a local level is we can have an impact on a local way. And we've been working with the NYPD and getting them to agree, and they have. And this was announced about 2 years ago. The former police commissioner, William Bratton, and the mayor, Bill de Blasio, made an agreement that they would no longer arrest young people or youth who possess less than 0.25 ounces of marijuana. Why is that important? Because young men and women were being locked up and incarcerated for possessing a low-level consumption of marijuana. And we know the unintended consequences that that leads to, where young people are incarcerated. They are ultimately possibly convicted if they don't have a lawyer and an attorney, and that can lead to all sorts of negative consequences.
Wow. Absolutely. Wow. Well, we're going to go to break. And when we come back from break, I want to talk about something that I'm extremely concerned about, and that's the whole rezoning that's taking place not just in the Bronx, but throughout other boroughs in the city and really throughout this country. So I really want to go in on that if we could. Absolutely. So we're going to go to break, and when we come back, we are going to continue this awesome conversation with Council Member Vanessa Gibson.
I was in a car accident, and it was 28 years ago. And after my accident, I didn't really want to be with another person, just because I didn't like being like this myself, so I didn't want to involve another person. I didn't want them to have to go through what I go through.
She was the person I was looking for. I just never realized when I met that person, that person would be in a wheelchair. So, life just happened. We don't have much control over how that happens, but it's been amazing. We just celebrated our 21st anniversary. We have such a different life because of her disability, but I couldn't do it if she wasn't amazing, and then I couldn't get through it if she didn't support me.
When I see Mike, I see the most amazing person.
Her love gives me strength and gives me compassion, a view on the world I wouldn't otherwise have.
My friends were worrying about, look at this guy, he looks totally different than your usual, but it was everything about his presence, his respect for me as a person, and how he approached me. It was really old school, but I really loved it.
I would never forgive myself if I hadn't approached her, She's my everything. She makes me more human, a better person.
He lets me be me, even when society doesn't let me be me.
I grew up in a small town. I grew up with racism, you know what I mean? I couldn't find it in my heart to hate somebody for their color.
Me being a black woman, dating a white guy, I get it from black guys, from white women, from the whole melting pot of people just looking at what we look at on the outside.
Love is something that you feel, not that you see.
Love is stronger than what people might say. We love each other. Nothing else really matters.
We do love each other and nothing else matters.
Okay, now what is NYCHA?
The New York City Housing Authority, which is, the public housing authority in the city, and that's who run all the public housing we have in New York City. I'm a member of something called the Committee for Independent Community Action, which is led by Dr. Lenora Falani. And it's a group of people who are trying to build something positive in a community and trying to help the community grow and develop and, fight for what they need. A lot of New York City NYCHA residents came and, you know, they were saying, well, they're kicking us out of our homes. So under the current plans, the mayor's, you know, next generation plan, that involves a lot of public housing being sold off to private developers, and a lot of people are very concerned that they're going to lose their homes over time. And it's not something you really read about in the news. It's not something everyone's really that aware of. A lot of the people that live in NYCHA housing are aware of it, but for various reasons, they're too scared to do anything about it, or they just don't know what they can do about it. So the Committee for Independent Community Action has been petitioning, you know, in different neighborhoods every weekend, trying to build a movement of people that want to fight back against what's going on and trying to stop that, you know, and they're asking the mayor and the city council to stand up and say, you know, why don't you do something about this? Because if the city knows that they're really trying to sell off all the public housing, I don't think most people would agree that that's a good thing. You know, so but without people knowing about it and without having a really public conversation about it, it's just going to go ahead and happen.
Welcome back to Legitimate Matters. Once again, I'm your host, William Paris, having a great conversation with Council Member Vanessa Gibson. So tell us, when the city is considering priorities, what type of legislation and resolutions that should be considered, how is it all determined on a citywide level and then within your own scope of responsibility?
Right, a couple of things. When the mayor ran, he ran on a campaign of A Tale of Two Cities, identifying a priority of income inequality, making sure that families living in poverty have a leg up and they're uplifted and enriched. So when he won his election and became mayor, that was his primary focus. How do you get to that? How do you create a better economic development engine for families to get jobs that are lifting them out of poverty? How do you create the pipeline to housing, quality health care? So a lot of the citywide policies and priorities are really driven from the mayor in consultation with all of his agency heads and commissioners, but a lot of that is really through the partnership of the city council. And individually, all of us as council members, based on the needs of our districts, we have priorities as well. So I have many priorities: youth, seniors, healthcare, housing, and jobs. All of those work hand in hand, and there's a lot of overlap in my district where you have to focus on all and not just one. And working with my colleagues and all of our committee chairs, we really develop our priorities as a city council. Out of 51, 49 of us are Democrats, and we have others that are Republicans. So most of it is Democratic-led, very progressive, very creative, looking at immigration and youth services and domestic violence and how we can be creative in our approach, but also make sure that we target those residents that are the most in need. So we develop priorities based on legislation, new ideas that we want to codify in local law, because we all have term limits, so we want to make sure good measures are codified in local law for the future council members coming into office. But we also want to put money where our commitment is by supporting programs and community-based organizations that serve our families and children in a significant way.
Wow, that is a lot. That's quite a bit.
And you put it all together.
Yes. And so I want to focus on one of those priorities because, as you said, there are many, and I would need a couple of hours to really go through them all. But let's talk about rezoning. Yes. That's really a hot topic in the Bronx, and I speak to so many people. I live here in the Bronx, and there's just a lot of concern. And I'd like to just begin, asking, well, what is rezoning? I know what it is, and it seems like a no-brainer, but amazingly, there are people that are just not paying attention. So let's talk about that.
In the next 10 years, the city recognizes that our population in New York City will go to 9 million New Yorkers. And with that increased population, there's an urgent need for housing. Not just any housing, but real affordable housing that can reach families where they are, but allow for upward mobility. Last year, the mayor put forth Housing NY, which is a plan that will preserve and create 200,000 new units of affordable housing, preservation, and new construction. But also coupled with that, there's a new MIH and ZQA, which is...
I know what that is.
It is mandatory inclusionary housing and zoning and quality and affordability. And these two plans are the city's mandatory affordable housing plan. Moving forward with MIH and ZQA, which was adopted in local law, any developer that's building new housing that has government tax credits and incentives has to have a percentage that is affordable housing. We are the largest municipality in this country to mandate MIH and ZQA. So that's number one. It's incredible, it's historic, but it's also a recognition that a lot of the housing is not affordable for families. And so with this plan, the city has identified about 14 neighborhoods across the city of New York that can probably have an increase in zoning. Commercial, residential, looking at industrial areas where there could be upzoning, raising zoning from an R7 to an R8, residential 7 to residential 8, where you can take on more families, which would mean more children, and really looking at a real neighborhood plan. Residents of any neighborhood where an upzoning is happening should be concerned, because many of us see New York changing dramatically.
Absolutely.
And we see neighborhoods that typically were low-income families, middle, moderate income, communities of color that are now changing, right? Everyone uses the term gentrification.
Right.
And you've seen it happen in many neighborhoods. And now with Jerome, which is the largest zoning that's slated for the Bronx and the only one, and so we will not, look at rezoning for at least another 2 to 3 decades. So we have to get this plan right. The Department of City Planning is looking at the Jerome Cromwell area. It's about 2 square miles from Yankee Stadium, Jerome Avenue north to 184th Street, west to E.L. Grant, Inwood, Cromwell, and other streets within. And we're looking at changing the rezoning to allow for more residential housing, but also more commercial activity as well. It's in our council district along with the neighboring Fernando Cabrera. Very ambitious plan, but we're at the beginning stages of this plan. But there's a lot of detail that has to be worked out and a lot of advocacy around this plan.
I've read that there are some arguments with regard to the rezoning and particularly with affordable housing, because when we hear affordable housing, we think it is exactly that. But the argument is that affordable housing is really aimed at individuals who are professionals, more like police officers or teachers, who might make 60 plus, whereas there's such a large population in the Bronx that's earning considerably less than that. So they are really, that whole project of affordable housing is still, once it's passed, outside of their reach. And you attended a town hall meeting around May 3rd, and you said, we're going to hold it, we're going to push it back until we get it right. And I want to know what your concerns are. And when you say we're going to hold it or try to delay it, and I believe it's been delayed maybe twice already, congratulations on that. But I want to know, is it realistic that we can hold this back long enough to really make a difference?
Working with the elected officials, the stakeholders, the community leaders and advocates, the community boards, anything is possible. I think a lot of times when you look at neighborhood rezoning plans, they're always given this, one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
That simply does not work for us in the Bronx.
Right.
And while the citywide AMI is about 50 to 60,000, our AMI in Community Board 4 and 5 is less than 30.
Right.
And so families are living paycheck to paycheck, literally.
Right.
Many families are living in shelters every night, and many of them are working. And so the faces of homelessness and the fact that many families are facing eviction and harassment by tenants, by landlords rather.
Yes.
This is a real critical issue that we are working on. And so that's why, I keep fighting to push it back, because I really want to make sure we have the right approach, the right plan, but also looking at the neighborhood itself. If we're going to build more housing, we need better supermarkets. We need access to health and wellness and fruits and vegetables.
Right.
We need more commercial diversity. And we also need upward mobility as well. I recognize we have a hospital. We have educators, college graduates that want to come home to their neighborhood and live, and that's great. They also need housing too. So there needs to be a pathway to mobility. But the most important goal with any neighborhood plan, and in particular Jerome, is to reach families where they are now. And they are now at 30% AMI, 40 and 50, not 80, 90, and 100.
Right.
And there are neighborhoods that can take that, but not in our community.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to go to break. This is a hot topic. It's a great conversation, something very close to my own heart, because I live here in the Bronx. So we're going to go to break. When we come back, we'll finish this conversation with Council Member Vanessa Gibson. Great conversation. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.
How we basically met is our sophomore year of physiology class in college. I just saw her and she looked friendly, so I went down and sat next to her a couple of times, and then after that we just became friends.
No, I just saw a girl who knew how to dress and had a friendly face. Our love is very genuine, I feel like. From the moment we started bonding as friends.
We come from totally different backgrounds. We come from totally different religions.
Our friendship doesn't see religion. It sees personality. It sees the heart.
This girl just randomly came up to me after class and she's like, "Why do you wear that?" I felt, if I was alone, I would have felt like targeted or like kind of afraid, but I had her by my side, so I would just answer her. I'm like, I wear it because I'm Muslim and it's just my religion, it's my choice. And just because I don't look like everyone else doesn't mean that you get to talk to me that way or you can treat me that way.
Love is being there for each other no matter what.
Welcome back to Legitimate Matters. This is your host once again, William Paris. I'm having such an important conversation with my guest council member, Vanessa Gibson. In all honesty, we can talk about this for hours.
Yes,
we can talk about this for hours. But what I really want our viewers to take away is how they can get involved, but also to point out the real importance of the 2018 midterm elections. Between now and then, I personally want to really beat that drum to get people to understand why that's important. Can you help me with that?
Absolutely. I think many New Yorkers and Americans in general have to realize that they have power, and the power of their voice is in their vote. And you either elect good people or you elect bad people.
Right.
And the reality is not every voter is informed and educated. Not every voter is engaged. At a local level, we have lowered the age to join the local community board to 16 to cultivate a new wave of young people to be involved in community boards. There are so many advisory panels, the precinct councils, so many ways that residents can be involved. You don't need a title in front of your name to do any of this work.
Right.
And the challenge a lot of times for us elected officials is we are advocating for all of the residents of our district, whether you vote or not. And when we have victories, we all benefit whether you vote or not. And the same thing goes for the advocacy world. If you are fighting a housing issue and you live in a building of 100 units, the 20 people that come out every month are fighting on behalf of the 100 families, and we all benefit, or either we all lose together. So people need to understand the power of voting and not be swayed or discouraged by this federal administration. And many of us in New York did not vote for Donald Trump as our president, but we have to accept that he is the commander-in-chief.
Agreed.
And a lot of the decisions and priorities he has put forth have been exactly what we don't want. Reversing a lot of the progress we have made, trying to repeal Obamacare, the threats to Social Security and public housing and NYCHA and public safety is a real threat. And it undermines everything that we stand for as New Yorkers. We are a sanctuary city, and we are fighting to make sure that we protect everyone regardless of their status. The midterm elections are critical. We have a House and a Senate that are led by Republicans that fight against everything we stand for. And if people don't think their vote is important, you can look at the presidential election and see with this president we call 45, it is the reason why you have to be involved.
Right.
And so we want to encourage everyone, voter registration, but also voter education, so people know the power of their vote is really the power of the future of your community.
And for individuals outside of or waiting for that that critical midterm election in 2018, there is much that we can all be doing leading up to that election within our own communities. And you are fighting for all of us, and we need you. We need you, and I applaud you, and I thank you for your work. But if you would just look at that camera and just encourage people to get involved and tell them how they can get involved.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, it is such an honor and a privilege as Councilmember Vanessa Gibson of District 16 to represent all of you and to be your voice at City Hall. I work every day on your behalf to make sure that your priorities are my priorities, your values are my values, and every day I want our community to get better and better. Please be involved. You don't need a title in front of your name to do any of this work. All you need is passion and a plan and a purpose. Join the local community board. Come to our community board meetings. Find out what precinct you live in. Attend those meetings to find out about public safety and what's going on in your neighborhood. Get involved in your local school district. If you live in school district 9 or 12 or 8 in our communities, get involved because we are responsible for the future of our community. Our young people are in desperate need of leadership, of guidance, of mentoring, and they are our future. If we don't invest in them now, then who will? We don't have the time, and our young people don't have the time. In our office at 1377 Jerome Avenue, which is at the corner of West 170th Street at the number 4 train at 170, we serve residents every day, Monday to Friday. Please come by our office. You can call us, visit us, you can email. I am available on all forms of social media, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram under my real name, Vanessa Gibson. And we just want to be a source of encouragement for all of you. We have weekly citizenship and immigration services on Wednesdays. We have monthly family law clinics. We also are the only council member in the city that has 6 community councils that meet every month in our office. We have Tenant Block and Neighborhood. We have Friends of Parks, Senior Citizens, Education and Youth, Clergy Council, and African Leadership. And you can be involved in any way. We hold events. We have forums. We do different cultural events and celebrations. We attend graduations. We just want to be a source of education and information for residents out there. So if you are ever in need of any assistance, you, your family, your friends, your church members, please come by and let us know how we can be of service. Our office number is 718-588-7500. That's 718-588-7500. And we are located at 1377 Jerome Avenue at the corner of West 170th Street. Once again, this is Councilmember Vanessa Gibson, and it's an honor and a privilege to be your council member, and I look forward to seeing you in our community. God bless you all.
And this is William Paris with Legitimate Matters. Remember, this is important because you are legitimate, you matter. Councilmember Gibson, thank you so much for being here. Legitimate Matters, William Paris. Tune in next week. Thank you. Thank you for watching Legitimate Matters. I want to thank my guest, Bronx Councilmember Vanessa Gibson, for being a guest on my show this week. Follow me on Facebook.com and on my YouTube channel, or email me at wparis@legitimatematters.com.